In today's lesson we're going to look at sharing in a given ratio. Now what we're going to share out, it could be a number, just quantity, it could be money, it could be sweets, it could be beads, a plank of wood, anything really. So if we're going to share it equally amongst people, then it would be, if it was two people, it would be a 1-to-1 split. As you can see this ratio here, equal parts. So if one person has one part, the other person also has one part. Second ratio I've got here is 2-to-3. Now that's not an equal split. The first person would have 2 parts. The second person, if it's people, would have 3 parts. So you can see they're not having the same amount. The first person would receive less than the second person. So how do we share something in a given ratio? Well, we normally go through 3 stages. And we're going to apply those 3 stages to a question that you can see in black here. So the question says, a different piece of wire of length 308 centimetres is cut in the ratio 2-to-4-to-5. You can see here the ratios aren't the same. It's not a 1-to-1-to-1, so all the pieces aren't going to be the same. They're all going to be a different length. Calculate the length of each of the 3 pieces of wire, and this has actually come from a previous GCSE question paper, and you can see there the end in brackets, it's 3. It'd be a 3-mark question. So let's have a little look at the steps above there. Number 1, add up the total number of parts. That's all the numbers in the ratio. So we're going to do that to begin. So number 1, the values I've got in my ratio, this question is 2 and 4 and 5. Adding those together gives me 11 parts. So in this question here, I want to divide into 11 parts. Question or part number 2, stage number 2, find the value of 1 part. And to do that, we need to divide the quantity you're sharing out by the total number of parts, our answer from part 1. So we're going to find the value of 1 part. We take what we want to share out, which in this case is the length of the wire, which is 308 centimetres. And we're going to divide it by the total number of parts. That's our answer from part 1, which in this case is 11. So how many 11s in 3? There aren't any. Carry over the 3. How many 11s in 30? Well, 2 11s are 22. The remainder from 22 to 30 would be 8. How many 11s in 88? There are 8. So 1 part is 28 centimetres of wire. Part 3 then. We need to find the answer to the question, so we need to find the value of each of the parts of the ratio. And to do that, we take each of the numbers individually in the ratio and multiply by the answer for part 2, which is 1 part. So the first value in my ratio is 2, so to work out what 2 parts is going to be, that's 2 times 1 part, so that's 2 times 28, which gives me 56 centimetres. Next value in the ratio is 4, so to work out the value of 4 parts, we're going to do 4 times 28, which gives you 112 centimetres. 112 centimetres. And finally the last value in the ratio is 5, so to work out the value of 5 parts, we're going to do 5 times 1 part, so that's 5 times 28, which gives you 140 centimetres. Now what you should do when you get to the end of a question is just to check your answer, to add up the answer for part 3 and make sure it gives you what you had to share out in the beginning, which in this case is 308 centimetres of wire. So I'm going to add up, I'm going to do my check, I'll add up my answers for part 3, so I've got 56, 112 and 140. Adding those together, 6 plus 2 is 8, 5 plus 1 is 6, plus the 4 is 10, 0 down, carry the 1, 1 plus 1 plus the 1 you carried is 3, so it gives me 308 as I'd hoped for. And let's do another few questions. The same thing, we're going to go through the 3 stages. So stage number 1 would be to add the values in the ratio. So in this case here we've got 2 and 3, so 2 plus 3 gives me 5 parts. I need to split £60 into 5 parts, and that's what I do with number 2, stage 2. I take what I've got to share out, which in this case is £60, and I divide it by the total number of parts, which is 5. I don't need a bus stop here. 60 divided by 5 gives me 12. So every one part is worth £12. That there is one part. So the values in the ratio then are 2 parts and 3 parts. So to find 2 parts, I'm going to do 2 times 1 part, so 2 times £12, which is £24. And to find 3 parts, the other value in the ratio, that's going to be 3 times £12, which is £36. And my check here, just to finish off, I'm going to add up my answers for part 3, and I'm hoping they add up to £60. So we've got £24 plus £36, which gives me £60 in total, as I'd hoped. Okay, next question then, same sort of thing. However, we've now got 3 parts in the ratio. So, stage number 1, adding up the values in the ratio. 1 plus 2 plus 10 gives me 13 parts. Stage 2, to find the value of 1 part, I take what I have to share out, which in this case is 286 grams. I divide it by the total number of parts, which in this case is 13. How many 13s in 2? There aren't any. How many 13s in 28? Well, 2 13s are 26. The remainder from 26 to 28 is 2. How many 13s in 26? There are 2. So that means every one part is worth 22 grams. Stage 3 then, to find each of the parts in the ratio. 1 part, don't need a calculation for this, I've worked it out in part 2. 1 part is equal to 22 grams. Then I've got 2 parts, so that's 2 times 1 part, 2 times 22 grams, which is 44 grams. And then 10 parts to finish off, that's 10 times 1 part, so 10 times 22 grams, which gives me 220 grams. And again, you can check your answer. If you add up 220, 44 and 22, it does give you 286 grams. Now this next question here isn't asking us to share some money in a ratio only, it's given us names. So the order the names appear in the question is the order that applies to the ratio. So what I mean by that, it's saying £336 is shared between Pete and Ben in the ratio of 5 to 7. How much more does Ben get than Pete? So we need to find out how much Ben and Pete are going to receive, and then we can see how much more Ben's going to have. So we've got Pete and Ben. So in the same order, that means Pete will be having 5 parts of the money, and Ben will be having 7 parts of the money. The order their names appear is applied in the same order to the ratio. Okay, we do have 3 stages, exactly the same as previously. So number 1, adding up the values in the ratio. 5 plus 7, that's 12 parts. Stage number 2, finding the value of 1 part. So here we're going to take what we have to share out, which is £336, and we're going to divide it by the total number of parts, which is 12. How many 12s in 3? There aren't any. 0 in your answer. Carry over the 3. How many 12s in 33? Well, 2 12s are 24, so that's going to give you a remainder of 9. How many 12s in 96? That's 8. So that means that every one part is going to be worth £28. Now for stage 3, I'm not going to write down 5 parts and 7 parts, but because the question's asking me about the people, Ben and Pete in this case, so I need to work out how much each of those are going to receive. So I'm going to use Pete. Instead of 5 parts, it's Pete, because it's how much he's going to get. So Pete gets 5 parts of the money, so he has 5 times £28. 5 times 28 is 140. And then Ben is having 7 parts of the money, so he's having 7 times 28, and that's going to give you £196. Obviously you can use your and tower sums if you need to for your multiplication. Haven't finished the question yet. It's really important that you read the last line or the last sentence in the question, because if I've left it as it is now, I'm going to lose marks. The question is asking me, how much more does Ben get than Pete? So that's the difference in how much they're receiving. Alright, so the difference is going to be the difference between these two values. So £196 is how much how much Ben is having. And I take away from that how much Pete is having, which is £140. £196, take away £140 is going to leave you with £56. So how much more does Ben get than Pete? Ben gets £56 more than Pete. Another question, thinking about the order of the wording, we've got a cafe sold 168 meals one day. The ratio of beef meals to chicken meals to fish was 4 to 2 to 1. So let's go through this order. We've got beef, chicken, fish. So beef is going to be 4 parts, chicken will be 2 parts, and fish will be just the 1 part. How many more beef and fish meals were sold on that day? So I'm not interested in how many chicken meals were sold because it's not relevant to the question. I need to work out how many beef and fish meals were sold. Same steps to begin with. Number 1 then, adding up the values in the ratio. We do need to include the 2 for chicken, even though we don't actually have to work out how many chicken meals were sold. So 4 plus 2 plus 1 is going to give you 7 parts. Step 2, finding the value of 1 part. That's taking what we've got to share out, which is the 168 meals, divided by the total number of parts. How many 7s in 1? There aren't any. Carry over my 1. How many 7s in 16? Well, 2 7s are 14. The remainder from 14 to 16 is 2. How many 7s in 28? There are 4. So every 1 part represents 24 meals. Part 3 then, I'm not going to include the chicken meals because I don't need it now. So I'll work out how many beef meals were sold. Now the beef is 4 parts, so that's going to be 4 times 24, which will give you 96 meals. Again, you can use your tower sums if it helps you with your multiplication. Then we've got the fish meals. I've actually got nothing to calculate here because fish is only 1 part, and we know from part 2 that 1 part is 24 meals. Finally then, how many more beef than fish meals were sold on that day? So we're looking for the difference between these 2 meals. So the difference will be 96, take away 24, which gives you 72 meals. So the difference between the number of beef dishes and the number of fish dishes sold is going to be 72. And the last question we're going to look at, we've got Kate and Pam share the cost of their £8.40 pizza in the ratio 3 to 4. How much does each pay? So we've got Kate first and then Pam. So relating that to our ratio, the first value in the ratio is 3, so that's going to be Kate's share, and Pam is going to be 4 shares or 4 parts of the ratio. So it's not going to be an equal split, it's not a 1 to 1, they're not equally sharing the cost of the pizza. Pam is going to pay more. And again, let's go through our steps. Number 1, adding the value in the ratio, 3 plus 4 equals 7 parts. Number 2, finding the value of 1 part. we take what we have to share out, which is the cost of the meal, £8.40, and we're going to divide it by 7. How many 7s in 8? There's 1, with a remainder of 1. Don't forget the decimal point in your answer. How many 7s in 14? There are 2. No remainder, nothing to carry over. How many 7s in 0? 0. So 1 part of the payment will be £1.20. And we need to find out how much each of these girls are going to pay. So we take Kate first of all. She pays for 3 parts of the meal. So that's 3 times 1 part. 3 times £1.20, which gives you £3.60. Pam is paying for 4 parts of the meal, so that's 4 times 1 part, 4 times £1.20, which is £4.80. And if we go back to what we said earlier on, we should do our check, because obviously we want to make sure the cost of this pizza is covered. So let's just check that. £3.60 plus £4.80 gives us £8.40. As we'd hoped, the cost of the pizza is fully covered. And that's the end of the lesson.